week 13 of the fantasy football season. And here's a few kickers I have as sleepers this week. The first guy, Nick Folk of the Tennessee Titans. And Nick Folk, he's been a solid kicker once again this season. And this week, a great matchup versus the Indianapolis Colts. I give up the most fantasy points to kickers on the season. So the last few weeks, I know the numbers haven't been great. Week 10 at Tampa, 6. Week 11 at Jacksonville, 2. And Week 12 versus the Panthers, 7 fantasy points. But this week with a good matchup versus Indianapolis, and I believe this is going to be a sloppy ball game between these two teams. I think Nick Folk is going to get a few opportunities. We know this Titan team really hasn't scored touchdowns over the last 3-4 weeks of the season. And Nick Folk kicking well after he's been in the league now 15-plus seasons. And once again, this week is a sleeper option. I think he can help fantasy owners. Available right now in 80% of fantasy leagues. Next pick is Blake Grubb of the New Orleans Saints. Blake Grubb, he was a top pickup this week off the waiver wire after coming off a monster ball game at the Atlanta Falcons with 19 fantasy points. And obviously this New Orleans Saints team picked Grubb in preseason over Will Lutz before trading Lutz away to the Denver Broncos. So right now he's got a big boot, is Blake Grubb. We've seen it last week. We've seen it early in the season. We're in his rookie year right now. He's got 4 games with double-digit fantasy points. And this week, a pretty good matchup versus the Detroit Lions, where this team knows they're going to have to put points on the board. And obviously, playing at home and indoors is always a plus as well. So right now, well, he's off a monster game in Atlanta, and the confidence is sky high for Blake Grubb. If you need a kicker in deeper leagues, he's a sleeper. He's available in 92% of fantasy leagues. And the third and final kicker I have as a sleeper is Chase McLaughlin of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So Chase McLaughlin, he's been a solid kicker over the last few seasons. Last year with the Indianapolis Colts. And for the most part this season, his percentile has been pretty solid in terms of making field goals. So the last few weeks here for McLaughlin, Week 10 versus Tennessee, 8. Week 11 at the 49ers, 2. And Week 12 at Indianapolis, 8. So this week here, pretty good matchup versus Carolina Panthers, where we know they've given up a lot of points this season. And their defense is a bend-but-don't-break defense for the most part over the last few weeks. Teams have had to settle for field goals at times. So right now, McLaughlin's got a good boot. Tampa Bay back at home should be great weather, which is always a plus because it's been cold out here, obviously, and it's the winter season. So Chase McLaughlin, we'll see if he can continue to play good football. And usually he's good for anywhere from 6 to 9 fantasy points. So that's a few kickers I have as sleepers here for Week 13 of the fantasy football season.